Hi. Hola.
Hi, hier ist Mr. Döse.
This is Michael Bradley.
Hey, I'm Memphis.
Hey.
Hola. Hello.
I'm here with soccer.com.
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 And I'm talking with my friends soccer.com.
See you soon.
Hey guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you my first impressions plus on-feet video of the brand new Balance Furon 2.0 Pro in the bright cherry and galaxy colorway. Now included with the shoes inside the box is a shoe bag. It doesn't actually have strings so you can wear it like a backpack, but it does have strings at the top so you can seal the top of the bag. Bright cherry in color. Bright yellow Furon branding through the middle. Other than that, you do of course get the shoes themselves, which I have right here. That is drastically different in comparison to the original New Balance Furon, a shoe that honestly I wasn't a big fan of. I think the Vizaro Pro is very, very good, and it remains the same in the current New Balance lineup, but they chose to revamp the Furon in the form of the 2.0 Pro that I have right here, and they've made some very significant changes. The sole plate and stud pattern hasn't changed, but the upper is entirely different. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing my opinions on the changes that they have made. We're going to go over all the tech specs, take a look at the weight of the shoe, as well as talk about how these things fit and feel on feet. Essentially cover everything that you need to know about the New Balance Furon 2.0 Pro. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around and watch the entire video. If you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, be sure to check out the review page on my website. That'll be the very first link down below in the description of this video. On that page, you will find Buy It Now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $200 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair, first link down below, go ahead and check it out. And with that being said, let's get right into the review. To start things off, let's talk tech specs and performance features with the new Furon 2.0 Pro. Now, my major issue with the original Furon was that the upper was just too rigid, too plasticky, too lacking in softness and any kind of comfort on your foot to really be what should be considered a high-end shoe, in my opinion. It's just one of those shoes that I thought was a complete miss by New Balance, and I didn't really like much about it at all, aside from the sole plate and stud pattern, but you couldn't really enjoy that aspect of the shoe because the upper, at least for me, and I know for a lot of people as well, just wasn't very comfortable. It was way too stiff, way too rigid. They fixed that with the 2.0 variation, which I'm very, very happy to see. So the overall material itself is still the same concept. It's a hybrid mesh upper, so a mesh base that you can very clearly see with polyurethane top layers of plastic type material fused on top, both to protect the mesh base as well as to reinforce the upper. Now, it's kind of the opposite formula as what we saw on the original Furon, which was less mesh, more plastic, which is why the shoe was so stiff and so rigid when it came to the upper. Where this time around, like I said, it's kind of the opposite formula. More mesh and less plastic. It's a lot more flexible, a lot softer, and honestly, I really like how these feel both in hand as well as on feet. It's a much different experience in comparison to the original Furon, to the point where you almost can't compare the two shoes anymore. I really like how this feels. It's soft, it's thin, it's flexible. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the prime knit upper that we had on the Adidas Ace 15 Plus prime knit, for those that remember those shoes. But this one has a little bit less padding to it. It just feels thinner in general and has more of a pingy sensation just because the mesh itself is relatively dense. It doesn't have a lot of fluff to it, if that makes any sense. So the finish on the surface of the upper is slightly grippy, I guess a little bit more grippy than what you would find on most kind of polyurethane top coats, but for the most part isn't super grippy on the ball, which again, not necessarily a positive or negative feature, just something that's somewhat unique to this particular shoe as far as feel is concerned. But if you want a thin feel overall, you're going to get it from this particular upper. The reinforcement through the midfoot, which you see in the form of this kind of fancy graphic in blue and yellow on both the lateral and medial side, that is their Phantom Fit overlay. So again, a carryover feature from what we saw on the original Furon, but again, taken to a lesser extreme. So it still does support the midfoot area of the shoe quite a bit, and it goes around the toe box and forefoot area as well, just to reinforce the high wear, high stress zones on the upper, but it's not as stiff, it's not as rigid, and it's just a lot more comfortable in general. The tongue, as you guys can see, it has one now. It's no longer a burrito style top of the foot kind of wrap concept. This is pretty much a standard design where the laces run through the middle and you have a standard tongue that's made from the same material as the rest of the upper, which I really like. It's the simple way of doing things and probably in the long run the better way of doing things, especially from a comfort standpoint. Moving on to the heel area of the shoe, you will find that it does have an internal plastic heel counter, which is remarkably hard considering how thin it actually is. And then you have their new sprint spike inspired heel or collar system. They're calling it a collar just because that's kind of the cool word to use right now. But as you can very clearly see, this is still a standard low cut shoe, but it's different because the material is kind of fused. It doesn't really have a covered edge, if that makes any sense. And you can very clearly see what I'm talking about. The inside lining material, it has some shape to it. So it has a little bit of a bulge going around the side of the ankle as well as the very top there, kind of to lock your heel in place a little bit, I suppose. The liner itself is pretty much all you get though as far as padding is concerned. It's almost like a cloth-like material, if that makes any sense. It's super soft to the touch. No issues there in regards to just the softness of the material, but there is no padding here. You're pretty much right against that plastic heel counter, which is kind of concerning, but at the same time, I really didn't have any issues as far as how they fit on feet. They felt pretty comfortable to me. No heel slippage. The lockdown was pretty good. And I'm very interested to try out this design a little bit more. Again, they went for that kind of sprinter spike inspired, very minimalist design to kind of cut down on weight and bulk on the inside of the shoe. And I think for a soccer cleat implementation, it makes a lot of sense. And it's not necessarily something that we haven't seen in the past, not necessarily from New Balance, but other brands in general. So I think that's actually a pretty cool feature that is fairly unique to this particular shoe. You will find that through the lacing system, it does run fairly deep, so that's pretty good. You are able to get a nice secure fit through the midfoot, and they do include that extra lace hole as well, so you can get a little bit more kind of security as far as locking your heel into the back of the shoe, which is something that I always like to see included, just that extra lace hole. You don't have to use it, but it is an option should you want to. The insole is non-removable, it's glued in, which is kind of an uncommon feature for a shoe in this particular price range, but it's something that New Balance does on both of their top-end models, this as well as the Vizaro, and I personally don't mind it just because it doesn't allow the actual insole itself to slide around. So the insole, as you guys can see, is just solid foam. It doesn't have any kind of liner. The liner is just straight up the material of the insole, and it's made from a Revlite foam. So it's the same foam that we saw on the original Furon. Revlite is a foam that you will find on a lot of New Balance running models, and it's actually a really nice insole. It provides a lot of underfoot cushioning that you wouldn't necessarily expect given how thin it is. This is supposed to be revamped in comparison to the original Furon, so it's supposed to be improved in some way. They don't really mention how. For me, when I tried it on, it didn't really feel any different, but I liked it on the original Furon. I expect to like it on this shoe as well, and hopefully it is improved as New Balance is claiming, although I'm not sure what exactly they could do to improve upon that particular insole. And then moving on to the bottom of the shoe, you are going to find their stiffened nylon sole plate with the ultra directional stud pattern. So the material itself is not a plastic, despite on how it might look. It's a nylon material that is relatively stiff. With that said, it does have flexibility in the right spots, but you will notice immediately that it is stiffer than the average sole plate, which again, kind of more of a personal preference thing as opposed to something that is a true positive or negative aspect of the shoe. I personally don't mind it. And again, it kind of goes with the sprinter spike theme of the shoe where you're supposed to get somewhat of a spring back effect. Is that necessarily the case? No, but it does have a nice kind of solid feel underfoot, which a lot of people do like, including myself. I'm not opposed to stiffer sole plates if it flexes in the right points. And it does flex right here in the middle of the forefoot as you want. But like I said, there is kind of some force feedback to it, that spring back effect, which I don't mind. It just takes some getting used to. As far as the stud pattern is concerned, it's kind of the same layout that you find with their Vizaro model, just with triangular studs, and then obviously in the heel, it only has 2 studs as opposed to 4. So this is kind of something we have seen in the past from other brands, most notably the Mercurial Vapor 8 and 9 from Nike, but different layout here. No worries of this actually breaking. These are super, super solid. You have the reinforced nylon for the sole plate, and then the stud tips are a standard TPU plastic. But again, durability is not something that I'm worried about. Stability was not an issue with this particular stud pattern, as again, it was featured on the original Furon. And the actual amount of traction that it provides is very, very good. This is a firm ground stud pattern, so it is made or intended to be used only on natural grass, and on that particular surface, the amount of grip and bite that you get is very, very good. You can see that you have kind of a hidden stud within the actual graphic here running through the midfoot, the pattern that they have just to stiffen it up, reinforce that area of the shoe. So that's kind of a cool little feature. And then you have 3 studs here very close to the tip of the toe that look like they might get in the way, but honestly it's not an issue at all. This reminds me a lot actually of what we have with the current generation of Mercurial, the new ones, in that you do have a lot of studs to kind of dig into when you're on the tip of your toes. So again, traction is above average for this particular shoe and something that is not going to let you down. So overall, I really, really like the changes that they've made to the New Balance Furon 2.0. It's the same technologies minus the collar area or a heel area that they have changed up. That's kind of completely new, but it's the same technologies that we saw introduced on the original Furon, but much improved in my opinion. That's the best way to describe what they've done with the 2.0, and that's really all you can ask for from any brand. If they're going to replace a model, just make sure that it's better, and that's pretty much what they did here with the New Balance Furon 2.0 Pro. As far as weight is concerned, I thought we'd compare the Furon 2.0 to the original Furon to see if there's any significant weight difference between the two given the design changes that they've made. So I'm going to weigh both of these shoes for you today in real time. Keep in mind these are both the exact same size 9.5 US, so this is a very fair comparison. We'll start off with the original Furon, throw it on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at a very lightweight 7.1 ounces, the equivalent of 201 grams. So remember those numbers. We'll change the scale back to ounces, pull these off, and we'll throw on the Furon 2.0, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.7 ounces. So they are 0.6 ounces more, the equivalent of 218 grams. So just over half an ounce more than the original Furon, which isn't really a significant amount of weight. You don't notice that all that much on feet, just in terms of the feel of the shoe. The biggest difference though is the actual feel of the shoe, the fit, the comfort, the flexibility. It is a big improvement in pretty much every single category when compared to the original. Yes, it's not as light, but honestly, the extra weight isn't something that you really notice all that much just because the shoe itself feels so much different. So again, not as light as the original, but that's not necessarily a negative thing in my opinion. As far as aesthetics go, yes, the shoe does look different from the original Furon, but for the most part, it still looks like a New Balance shoe. I like the fact that you can actually see the mesh within the upper, which you could also see with the Furon. You have the New Balance N logo on either side, although it is different color. Lateral side is white. Medial side, it's a navy blue, and then you do have the standard, more traditional New Balance logo right there on the heel as well. I don't know, let me know what you guys think of the look of this shoe down below in the comment section. The New Balance shoes, for the most part, aside from some very minor things, especially from a distance, they all look fairly similar to each other, but I personally don't have any issues with how this shoe looks. They kept it pretty simple with the graphics this time around. The colorway itself, this being the launch one, is a bright cherry upper, which definitely looks a little bit more pink than orange in person if you were at all wondering. So if you don't necessarily like pink shoes, maybe wait until the next colorway release. I'm not sure when that will be, but as of right now, this is the only colorway that's available. So you have the pink with a bright yellow color and then what they call Galaxy, which is this navy blue. That honestly, all the colors they chose actually go quite well together. It's just kind of an odd combination. I'm not too crazy about this launch colorway, but I don't think it's ugly by any means. So the sole plate, as you can see, is that bright neon yellow with a little bit of that Galaxy blue in the forefoot. Some of the studs are white, some of the studs are blue, and that's pretty much it as far as what you can see on the actual shoe itself. I like the design, honestly. I don't think it looks bad by any means, just kind of curious to see it in other colorways. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Do you like how these look? Why or why not? And with that being said, let's move on to the on-feet portion of the video so we can get a better idea as to how these shoes fit and, of course, what the sizing is like. All right, so here is a look at the Furon 2.0 Pros on feet. On my left foot, I have the stock laces that come with the shoes, and on my right foot, I have a pair of reflective white SR4U replacement laces. If you're interested in a pair of replacement laces for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. You find a direct link to that website down below in the description of this video. Now, in terms of how these things fit and feel on feet, they are actually very, very comfortable. I'm really, really happy with how these things feel. The upper is flexible. It feels fairly natural on your feet. It doesn't have that same kind of rigid plasticky sensation that you got from the original Furon. It's very thin and it fits quite well. The shape of the shoe, while it's similar in terms of just having that kind of wider forefoot, narrower toe box, almost anatomical shape to it, reminds me a little bit of Puma, but this is something that New Balance has been doing ever since they first launched. You find it with the Vizaro as well. The shoe just in general fits really, really nicely, pretty much all the way through. So I don't really have any complaints in regards to step and comfort. The heel, while kind of unusual in its design for a soccer cleat, fits really nicely. Heel slippage is not an issue. They don't feel uncomfortable by any means. And the actual feel underfoot from the insole, it's glued in. It's being a straight up foam as well. It has kind of a very connected sensation to the sole plate, which I personally quite like. As far as the shape and the width of the shoe is concerned, this is the regular width version of the Furon 2.0 Pro. There is a wide fit variation as well, but this being the regular version, actually has some pretty decent width to it. I have kind of average width feet, slightly flat footed, and these are plenty wide enough for me. It is a tighter kind of, it's meant to be a tighter fitting shoe, I should say, and they do fit me quite snug, but there is still a decent amount of extra width in here, even if I did have a slightly wider foot. So for the most part, I will say that the regular version is suitable for most foot types. It has decent width through the midfoot, forefoot, and toe box area, but if you do have really, really wide feet, they do make a wide fit specific variation that I would expect to be at least a decent bit wider than this one that would fit obviously a wider foot type, a little bit better than these would, but for the most part, I think these will fit most people. As far as sizing is concerned, the New Balance shoes run about a half size small, so instead of wearing my usual size 9 US, I bumped it up to a 9.5, and the fit and the length is absolutely perfect. I did the same with the Vizaro as well as the original Furon. So again, if you are interested in ordering a pair of these for yourself, if you already have a New Balance shoe, stick with the same size, but for most other people, I would recommend going a half size up in order to achieve the best possible fit. All right, guys, that is it for my review of the New Balance Furon 2.0 Pro. Expect to see more follow-up content on this shoe in the very near future on my channel. In the meantime, if you are looking for more info, be sure to check out the review page on my website. That'll be the very first link down below in the description of this video. On that page, you'll find the high quality images of this exact pair that I took myself. That'll give you a better idea as to how these actually do look in person. And you'll also find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $200 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair, first link down below, go ahead and check it out. If you have any questions at all regarding this shoe, leave them down below in the comments and I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.